Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to be making a few more retro-inspired Halloween decorations, so let's get started. For the first project, I started by cutting some scrap wood into two small squares and then giving them a coat of paint. Next, I used wood staples and attached a bed spring to each piece of wood. I then took a styrofoam ball and made a flat spot on it. Next, I rolled out some air-dry clay and covered the styrofoam ball. I used water to smooth out the clay and then set it aside to dry. I then glued a small wood flower pot to a wood disc. This is going to be his hat. When the clay was dry, I gave it a coat of orange paint. I then painted the hat black. When the paint was dry, I glued the hat onto the flat spot of the ball. Next, I took a pencil and drew the face on. It's much easier to erase a pencil line than it is to have to repaint it. Once I was happy with the design, I painted in the features. Next, I finished painting all the wood bases. I then added some painted designs to his hat. Next, I used a paint pen and outlined all the features on his face. I also used it to make his eyes and teeth. For the next one, I'm going to try to make a witch. Again, to start, I covered the styrofoam ball with clay. I then made her a nose. I just made it a kind of triangular beakish looking nose. I've never sculpted a witch face, so I'm just adding clay wherever I think it might go. I'm using water to blend the clay together. Next, I rolled out a ball of clay and cut it into two for her cheeks, again blending the clay together with a little bit of water. I then rolled out a skinny log shape and cut that in two. I'm going to use this for her brow. When I was making this, I was trying to remember what my high school art teacher said about sculpting faces, but honestly, that was too many decades ago, so I was just coming up blank. Next, I rolled out a couple of thin log shapes and used this to make the mouth. I then added more clay to the bottom of her face to give her a bit of a pointy chin. At this point, I don't know how I feel about this witch. I was going for a Wicked vibe, and so far it's looking more like it has an alien vibe. After the clay was dry, I gave it a coat of green paint. To make the hat, I used a triangle piece and a round piece of felt. I started by sewing the triangle piece along one side. I then turned it right side out and glued in a piece of wire. Next, I sewed the triangle piece to the round piece of felt. You could probably just glue it if you wanted to, but I like to sew mine. Once I had it sewn together, I squished the cone of the hat to make it look rumpled and then gently pulled the felt around the edge of the brim to stretch it and make it wavy. Next, I painted all the features on her face. Yep, she's still looking like an alien. Again, I used the paint pen to make the eyes. To make the hair, I glued on some Dollar Tree yarn. I just glued it on in rows starting from the bottom and working my way up. I didn't add any hair on the very top because the hat will cover that, and I want to make sure the hat will stay glued on. Next, I gave them a coat of antiquing wax and added a bit of Halloween ephemera to the both of them. Also, the heads are not glued on, they are just sitting on top of the springs. For the next project, I'm using an empty ribbon spool. I started by giving it a coat of paint. I did this because the paint will help to stiffen the cardboard. Next, I cut 2 circles from a piece of cardstock and glued it to the top and bottom of the spool. I then cut a strip of corrugated cardstock and glued it to the center of the spool. Next, I added a bead of glue around the edge of the top and bottom and then sprinkled it with black glitter. When the glitter was dry, I poked a small hole in the top and bottom. I then used a long needle and threaded a piece of ribbon through the hole to use as the hanger. For the looped end, I added a wood bead and then made a small tassel from yarn. I then tied a knot on the other side, and this will be the hanger. I also glued on a crochet coaster to the top. Next, I rolled out a piece of air dry clay. I rolled it out a bit thick. I then cut out some small ghost shapes I made. If I would have had some small cookie cutters, I would have just used that, but I didn't, so I cut it out with an X-Acto knife. After I cut the ghosts out, I used a clay tool and made the faces. I then inserted a small skinny craft stick through all of them and set them aside to dry. Now it's time to decorate it. I started by painting a few resin pieces to use, and then I started adding all of the miniatures. I like to add a lot of things onto mine, but you can add as much or as little as you like. I did keep in mind the weight of the items I was adding. I worked from side to side and tried to keep the ornament balanced. I would lift it up periodically to see if it was still hanging level. Next, I painted all the ghosts. I then used black glitter glue for the faces and used the paint pen to stripe the craft sticks. I then covered them with clear glitter. To attach the ghosts to the spool, I used air dry clay and made small round pieces and inserted the sticks through them and then glued them to the spool. I let that dry and then painted them. To finish it, I added some small pumpkins and orange glitter glue around the ghosts. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed these Halloween projects, and I'll see you in the next video.